Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 9 of Quantum Leap. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, Ben finds himself in the body of Jack, a bodyguard to a singer, Carly, which I think is so interesting because I was like, wasn't there something I watched fairly recently that I made a reference to being almost very bodyguard-esque, and it was an episode of The Equalizer, kind of the winter or mid-season finale. So it's just interesting kind of getting that like in this regard too. It's like, right, and this time I'm not stupid and figuring it out at the last second that, oh, there's a very little bit of a bodyguard homage to it with a bodyguard looking after a singer. But it's also like Carly's played by Deborah Ann Wool, which I was like, oh, dude, that's so dope. Obviously, I know her best from like True Blood and Daredevil. Maybe God of War Ragnarok. No spoilers. I think that's her. That character looks a lot like her and kind of sounds like her. I think I looked it up, and I actually just don't remember. I'm fairly certain I looked it up and it was her, but I could be mistaken. Either way. And obviously these leaps all kind of happen like I don't think that's by accident, and who knows, like obviously for the story structure it is that situation of, hey, this leap that Ben is doing is going to help him with his own personal thing that he's kind of dealing with or going through right now. Is that just happenstance? Obviously we're talking just from outside of just like the writing perspective of like, oh, writing like the episodes and stuff, they're meant to be structured like that. I mean, he can't fully control his leaps. It is potential, so that's why I'm also like, it does feel like it is probably fate that he would have. But I mean, I guess it's also like, right, every situation, every leap, he's bringing his situation with him. That just, you know, him, it kind of his experiences that he's going through or what he's dealing with right now. In this particular case, the whole Addison situation, because Addison's actually upset with him because being like, hey, why'd you keep me in the dark? Like, yes, it's nice to like, hey, I'm glad that you want to save me from whatever's going to happen, but you didn't tell me. That's not a good thing. Like, we're partners. We're supposed to be in this together. And you kept such a big secret that you did all of this and you kept it from me. And in this regard where he wants to keep stuff from Carly because he wants to like make sure that she's okay, and he doesn't want her to worry. It's his way of trying to protect her. I get it. Like, hey, not telling everyone because like, that's undue stress you don't need right now, especially considering the number one suspect for Carly's murder was her sister. Not even just suspect, was convicted. But I was like, yeah, but even she got convicted. It's like, oh, she was tried and everything. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. It is maybe it's the 70s or something. Yeah, 70. I think it's 73. And it's like, you know, it's not like, but it's like, oh, like there's this plethora of evidence. Once again, that key phrase, an orgy of evidence proving that it was her sister, Jamie. Which I should also, that actress who plays her sister seems so familiar too, and I just don't know what I know her from. Either way, it's like, yeah, you have all, like, especially when, was it Trevor had all those letters being like, oh, this, and this. And I was like, that did seem weird that he already, like, he had those locked and loaded, ready to pull the trigger on that. Addison, you know, being like, all right, I'll listen to Ben's gut feeling of like, yeah, something's not right. Like, are we sure that Jamie's the killer? Turns out she's not. Like, she was basically framed for it. It was like the perfect frame job, which I love that Ian's all about it, because it seems like Ian's kind of like the true crime person of the team. It seems like they're setting Ian up to be like that. So Ian was kind of like, yeah, like this could just be the perfect setup. That it's like, right, Jamie just happens to not have a drop of blood on her, but she managed to like transport the bloody knife from the situation back to a room. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, would you like carry it in like a bag or something? Like, how did you not have that transfer of blood on you in some shape or form? So. But it turns out Jamie wasn't the one responsible. The reason why everyone thought she was because she has a drug addiction. And obviously her and Carly had this complicated history. Especially when you hear it from Carly's perspective of, hey, I wasn't originally going to be the singer. We went to like a show or something that my sister signed me up for. And it's like, it's my little sister, so I got to do what she wants me to. So, and that's kind of what eventually led to her career. But sadly, Jamie got caught up in drugs, and, she's been trying to stay clean and sober. It seems like there have been issues over the years. Plus the letters that we later on find out, Trevor wrote those up, and now it's like he kept it distant. Because it seemed like, he wanted Carly all to himself because he ended up making so much money off of her. But sadly, he doesn't get any of the writing credits on her album and stuff. So it is that sad thing of, oh man, an artist is worth more when they're dead. Which is a really jacked up situation. So obviously it all points to Trevor. So it's like, okay, it's not Trevor, nor is it Jamie. So who is it? Was it Loretta, one of the backup singers, ended up being the one responsible? I kind of had a feeling. I just thought it was going to go a different direction than what it was. It turns out Trevor and her were a thing, and Loretta was saying like, oh, like Carly doesn't deserve. Well, it's I deserve this career, and also you don't deserve Trevor doing all that he's done for you type of situation. So she's the one that was kind of a little unstable. It is interesting too. Just that once again, that interesting. I wonder, does that happen to? Once again, despite how obsessed my niece is with The Bodyguard, I don't think I've ever seen that movie all the way through. I've been aware of the movie obviously well before my niece became obsessed with Whitney. I've always known about the movie. I don't think I've ever seen it all the way through. I think I've seen bits and pieces. So that's why I was wondering, like, could it be that, does that happen where it's like someone close to Whitney's character ended up being the one, like, trying to, I mean, it's usually in those situations, it's always the last person you suspect is person close to you. But I'm just thinking because the same thing happened in spoilers, but not really. Because it's vague enough that I can say it. It was someone close to the character in The Equalizer that came after. And so once again, it's the people you suspect. What I thought was going to go was when Loretta was like, oh, like I've got to find my ex-husband or something like that. I think since you want to like not put out or whatever. Jack, like she's joking, but I forgot what it was. It might not have been that specifically. I think she made some reference to like how much they love Carly or something like that, and I was like, I don't know. She said something in particular that I was like, oh, she's in love with Carly. That I thought that's what it was. I thought it was like, no, I'm in love with you. Like how like an obsessed fan will be in love with her. I thought it was kind of that, where it's like it was an obsession that turned fatal, like a fatal attraction type of situation. That's what I was kind of thinking, but it's like no, it was a jealousy thing plus in conjunction with the Trevor situation. Does make you wonder because they never say anything whether or not there's ever a Jack and Carly situation, because it seemed like that was something already bubbling beneath the surface, which I guess it's like in that field, like a musician and their bodyguard, that's always just, it's meant to be type of situation. But I'm also curious, like they never really bring that up, but I guess it's just kind of like, maybe when the real Jack comes back, him and Carly can pick things up. So I think it's also for the complicated thing for Ben too, because it's like, yeah, like here I am making out with you. It's like, oh, my job is just protecting you. It's like, it's weird considering like, hey, my fiance's over there. That's a little weird. That's a little complicated. I also love that Addison kind of threw it in Ben's face about the whole like, well, you did kind of think someone else was innocent, and it turned out she was like a very, very bad guy. And Ben's like, yeah, true. But still, like, and obviously, instincts on this ended up being right in this regard. But and also in the end, Carly and Jamie ended up like rekindling the relationship after all these years. Because obviously it's like, well, what do I say? Like, I kept my sister away from me for 6 years, and it's like, yeah, just say you're sorry. You can't make up for the past, but you can find a way to move forward together. And the fact is, before she could even really say anything, Jamie's the one that's like, I'm sorry, I know that you tried to do so much for me, and they hug, I think that just, we wasted enough time. Why waste even more time? Why waste even a minute more being afraid? So I thought that was kind of beautiful. And they're touring and writing music together in their career. So I think that's pretty dope. So And also, it's never end well. So anytime, like, I see her smile, I'm like, yeah. She's one of those actresses where I'm like, dude, when I see you smile, you have one of those, like, radiant smiles. It's like, I'm getting all, like, mushy and gushy about it, but, like, she's just one of those actresses where you're like, dude, I want to see you, like, I love it, like, seeing you smile and everything. Because I'm just like, she has that type of smile that you're like, ah! So it's just like, okay, I'm glad you're, obviously, the context of the show, I think typically we could expect most people to have a happy ending, so I'm just glad in this, extra glad in this regard. We'll just kind of say that. So, but like I said, I do like the parallels that with everything going on, where even like Magic ended up talking to Addison about like, right, I understand that your anger towards Ben, because he's like, yeah, the moment I found out that this was about you, I wanted to throttle him too, because it's like we're supposed to be in this together, and Ben didn't trust any of us, not just Addison, especially if this was about Addison. Why couldn't he trust me, Ian, or even Jen with this information? He kept it to himself, and that's the most frustrating thing. We are a team. We're supposed to be like family, especially for Magic. It's like, I thought of him like a son, and he couldn't even trust me with this, which I have my theories on why he didn't. The way Janice puts it, because they eventually track her down, it's like, hey, she used Ziggy to keep us in lockdown, and let's reverse engineer this to use Ziggy to find her. Jen actually went and talked to her. I think she kind of let herself get caught a little too easily. She's like, oh, these are my bodyguards. It's like, I pay them well. It's like, yeah, but Uncle Sam pays better. So, I guess they, like, prepared for this eventuality. Like, the team's good, they will eventually catch you. I don't know, but I feel like maybe she made that a little easier on them. It seems like she doesn't 100% trust the team, just because it's like, right, Ben came to me because it speaks volumes. You're not asking the right question. Like, if something does happen to Addison, why did he turn to me rather than the people on his team? Now, getting back to why I think this is about, because it's like, they also bring the conversation up too, and this is something someone had commented, I want to say in the winter finale or the previous episode, was saying that they wanted it to be more than just like, oh, you're trying to save Addison, which, I mean, I get it. Like, for them, it's like, I think for them it's too cliche. I'm sure, like, it's like, oh, like, everything you do is for love. I think that's always going to be at the heart of anything, but they want it to be something a little more grandiose. And even this show kind of leans into that by being like, but I thought Ben was doing this because there was something, like, this was bigger than him, this was bigger than Addison, this was bigger than all of us. So, Addison's potential death, depending on what, I mean, they can only assume that's what this is about, has to be like I think a linchpin in a series of events. Like, her death might have jump-started a whole domino of effects. So, they need to stop. Ben's trying to fling to a very specific point in the future to stop something happening to Addison, potentially her dying, so that it doesn't set all the dominoes in motion, you know? Now, my thinking is the reason why he didn't tell Addison and them, because if he tells them exactly what's going to happen, it changes the future. I mean, just kind of exactly like this episode, and I think that's maybe the parallel they were also going for. Hey, the more you change the future, the more the killer adapted to everything Ben and Addison were doing to keep Carly safe, and still ended up framing Jamie in the long run, right? So, it's kind of, I think, that thing of, right, we know, Ben knows, and maybe even Janice knows, the exact point Ben's trying to get to, what's happening. If Addison or anyone else on the team knows, they will do whatever they can to avoid that. They'll be on guard, and that will change time. Like, because part of me is also wondering, could it be her death is like, this might be in some timey-wimey stuff of Ben might be trying to change a fixed point in time. Like, her death might be one of those inevitabilities where it's like, oh, she might not die this way, but her death is such a fixed point, she will always die in some shape or form, like a very Final Destination aspect of it. So maybe Ben's trying to break the rules when it comes to her, because maybe if he let Addison and them know, like, oh, Addison, like, it's not just I need to protect you. It means, like, we've done the research, we've done the calculations, we've looked into it, we use Ziggy to calculate it. You die every time. over and over. And maybe this has something to do with Leaper X. We got introduced to Leaper X, and once again, they were believing that Ben was following them, and maybe this has something to do with that. But I still feel like whatever's going on with Addison isn't all there is to it, but it's a linchpin. It's very much like Claire from Heroes, save the cheerleader, save the world conversation. And obviously that conversation, obviously like that context, obviously as you go through season 1, you find out, by the end of it, what the full context of that really meant when it came to, about Sylar and everything about her power. So tangents and all that aside, but it's also kind of to the point. I think like her death or her whatever it is connected to her, it's a linchpin that sets so much stuff in motion that it's like, right, if we can change this, then we need a plan to change this. It's a laundry list of things we have to change, or maybe saving Addison stops everything else from happening too. We'll ultimately have to wait and see on that front, but I don't know if Janice is going to be very upfront, and whatever information she gives him, it's like, well, who can guarantee that you can trust it? Because she is pretty smart. They always stay a step ahead of you. And once again, this time just happened to be the time you caught her. Because even she's like, oh, you used Ziggy, like how I use Ziggy, you use Ziggy to find me. And Ian's like, I'm not going to say, let's just say, I'm not going to say that's exactly what I did. So that's where I am on that. And once again, why not tell the rest of the team? Either it's going to be a reveal of, well, you can't trust someone on the team. There might be a traitor amongst them. There's that. I feel like, that could be the thing, but I'm more so, I'm wanting to look more optimistically. They would do whatever it takes to save Addison as well, but you need things to stay exactly the same because you know what things are going to be. Yeah, Addison might know, like, okay, something's going to happen to me in the future that I need to be saved from, but not knowing the specifics of it means she won't avoid it. She won't change time. So that's why you have to keep her in the dark potentially. So that's my thinking through it all. We'll ultimately see whether or not that ends up being the case. But it is an interesting situation. That's come up before about Ben being a different version of himself, because even Addison's like, she feels kind of weird about the fact is that Ben is different from who he was before. He is a lot more open about his emotions and his feelings. So this Ben recognizing his mistakes, and who's to say OG Ben wouldn't have done it as well? But it's like, right, I can't change that I kept you in the dark, but let's work together. We are a good team together. So from now on, I'm not going to, if I find out something, I'm going to tell you the truth. There's going to be open communication between us going forward with this. So once again, I do believe it is like a selfless thing of, hey, I love you and I kept you in the dark because I had no choice. Ben saying right, I might have had a choice for it, but still for Addison, it's like, you didn't give me an opportunity to try and protect myself. Like, you're keeping me in the dark. Yeah, your reasons are altruistic, sure, but we're supposed to be in this together. You keeping me in the dark, especially if it has something to do with me. I think there's also, as Magic kind of put it, it's like, yeah, I get it as a warrior myself, but I think there's also there is that interesting thing because as we know about Magic's past and his connection to this project. So it's interesting that it's like, a Leaper kind of ended up being in his body that ended up, because he wasn't supposed to survive the situation that ended up leading to him, Sam in Magic's body ended up saving Sam's brother. But also Magic wasn't supposed to survive that day, so there might be an interesting parallel to now a Leaper saving Addison, and it's interesting how that, I think there might be a more direct parallel in that regard. I mean, and whatever this is might include a lot of people's lives, not just in the leaping sense of, hey, we're saving lives along the way, but the end result of what they're trying to fling to the future to change or do might involve Magic, Jen, and Ian as well. Maybe Addison is a focal point, but maybe they're also, because they're in proximity, because they care about her, they're directly... maybe it's a Ziggy thing, but how did Ben become aware of Addison? Maybe it was a test run during the project or something, and something got a glimpse of, like, how did you stumble across the fact is you know that something happened to Addison? Like, we still haven't really gotten that answered either. There are a lot of questions. I'm very interested to see where all this ends up taking us. Happy to have Quantum Leap back, and I'm so excited to ultimately see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.